There's a child support order for payments starting in 2018, the court said. I've never had children. I don't know this woman. The envelope was waiting on my doorstep when I got home from work. Official seal from the county courthouse. My hands were steady when I opened it, but they weren't steady for long. The document listed me as the biological father of a child named Amelia Rose, born March 15, 2018. The mother's name was Denise Watkins. I'd never heard that name in my life. I'd never been to the address listed on the order. I'd never fathered any children. Not in 2018. Not ever. But according to the state, I owed 6 years of back payments totaling $84,000, and a warrant would be issued if I didn't respond within 30 days. I called the courthouse the next morning. The clerk pulled up my case and read the details like she was ordering coffee. Mr. Hartley, you were served notice of paternity proceedings in April 2018. You failed to appear, so the court entered a default judgment. I was never served anything. Our records show certified mail was delivered to your address and signed for by someone named Catherine Hartley, my wife. Catherine had signed for legal documents about a child I supposedly fathered with another woman, and she never mentioned it, not once in 6 years. I drove home during my lunch break with my heart pounding against my ribs. Catherine was in the kitchen making lunch when I walked in. I set the court order on the counter between us. What is this? She glanced at it for half a second. Looks like junk mail from the courthouse. I watched her face. Nothing changed. No surprise, no confusion. Just the same calm expression she wore when discussing what to have for dinner. I hired an attorney named Wallace who specialized in paternity fraud. Within a week, he had pulled the original court filing and the documents were damning. The paternity claim included a birth certificate listing me as the father, a DNA test from a lab I'd never visited, and photographs of me with Denise Watkins that I had absolutely no memory of taking. Wallace spread the photos across his desk. Do you recognize this woman? I stared at the images. Me at a restaurant with a brunette. Me walking on a beach with the same woman. Me holding an infant in what looked like a hospital room. That's my face, I said slowly. But I've never been to any of these places. I've never held a baby. I've never met this woman. Wallace leaned back in his chair. Someone went to extraordinary lengths to fabricate your involvement with this child. These photos are professionally edited. The DNA test paperwork has inconsistencies, and your wife signed for the court summons 6 years ago. I started investigating Catherine. I felt sick doing it, but I had no choice. I pulled our old phone records, our bank statements, anything I could access. In May 2018, Catherine had withdrawn $4,500 from our joint savings. The memo said medical expenses. I'd had no medical issues that year. Neither had she. I found text messages she'd deleted but hadn't erased from the cloud backup. Conversations with someone saved as DW. The messages were clinical, transactional. Payment received, documents filed, he'll never know. Another message from August 2018. Court ruled in our favor. Default judgment entered. You're set for the next 18 years. I read that message 12 times. My wife had conspired with a stranger to file a fraudulent paternity claim against me, her own husband, and pocket child support payments for a child that didn't belong to me. I confronted Catherine that evening with the text messages printed out and spread across our dining room table. She walked in, saw the papers, and her mask finally cracked. You weren't supposed to find out like this. I asked her why. She sat down slowly, like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. Denise is my sister, half-sister, different fathers. We grew up apart, but we reconnected a few years before we got married. She got pregnant by someone who disappeared. She needed money, a lot of it, so you used me. You make good money. The child support was based on your income. Denise got steady payments. I got a cut for handling the paperwork. Everyone won. I stared at the woman I'd been married to for 11 years. Everyone except me. I've been paying child support for 6 years for a kid I didn't father. Through money you've been stealing from our accounts without telling me. Catherine shrugged. You never noticed the difference. I went to the police the next day with Wallace and every piece of evidence we'd gathered. The detective assigned to our case discovered that Denise Watkins had been running this scheme with 3 other men, all connected through Catherine's network of friends and distant relatives. Catherine had been the architect, identifying targets, forging documents, and intercepting legal notices before the victims ever saw them. The DNA tests were fabricated through a corrupt lab technician who'd been taking bribes for years. The photographs were created using advanced editing software that merged my face onto someone else's body. Every piece of evidence used against me was manufactured from scratch. Catherine was arrested at our kitchen table on a Friday morning. Denise was picked up the same day at her apartment, along with the lab technician who'd falsified the DNA results. The charges included fraud, conspiracy, forgery, and theft by deception. The court vacated the child support order and expunged my record. The $84,000 I supposedly owed disappeared from the system, but the damage was already done. I'd spent 6 years married to someone who had been stealing from me while I slept next to her every night. I filed for divorce before she made bail. Catherine got 4 years. Denise got 6. The lab technician got 8 for his role in multiple cases. I moved to a different state and changed my phone number. The child, Amelia, was real. She just wasn't mine. Her actual father was never found. I think about her sometimes. Growing up in the middle of a fraud she had no part in